What's up guys, this is Dark Magician here and welcome to another KOF video. Now guys, with the latest updates, it turned out that our next boss is gonna be Shion. And well, here we were confused whether it's gonna be either Shion or Robert or even Cataleona, because for some reason the order is still not clear. But you know, eventually it's a good thing that Shion is next, because this will give many teams their chance to recover again. So yeah, without further ado, today's character introduction will be for Shion. Okay guys, so as you can see, Shion is an API 15 DPS, and if you see the skill of or the stats of a typical DPS, you will see high crit rate and very high crit power, whereas the other stats are pretty much low. Now his feature says gender switch and ultimate combo. Now here gender switch, it's gonna be a new feature or a new thing to the game, where Shion can actually change his gender from male to female under certain conditions. Of course we're gonna see that with the skills later on. And ultimate combo, because he can make more than one ultimate. Again, we're gonna see it in the skills as well. Now let's start with the fates first. Weapon user, we're gonna need Shion, Billy and Mr. Big, increasing attack plus 25%. Girlish boy, we're gonna need Shion, Ash and Psyche, increasing attack plus 25%. And Chinese Kung Fu, we're gonna need Shion, Tang Furu and Shunei, increasing attack again plus 25%. Now here the sad news and well the drawback for Shion is that two fates are pretty hard to unlock. Unlike other fighters unlike other bosses where usually one fate is very hard to unlock, but Shion has two fates which are, let's say, very hard to unlock, unless you are lucky to have a few of those fighters. But yeah, most of us will most likely lose 25% attack at least. So yeah, if you do have those fighters, then that would be a big bonus for you. But anyway, his weapon is called the Red Tasseled Spear, and he uses Gale Badge and Judo Tong. Now moving to his fight soul, it's called the Demon Tiger Soul. So after fighter killed on either side or after launching attack, will get 24 rage. So the first part is a tiger soul and the other part is a snake soul. And in addition to that, get much rage upon start, which is a characteristic of a bear soul. So it's actually a combination of tiger, snake and bear all in one, which is pretty good. Now let's start with the skills and his passive skillful change. When Shion enters the battlefield, if more than half of the allies are female, Shion pretends to be a female and therefore considered as female instead of male. So that's actually the gender switch part. If there are more females in the team instead of males, then Shion will be considered as a female himself, which gives him much more utility in other teams, for example female teams. Okay, now increase his own crit power and increase 7% crit rate and block rate for each fighter of Shion's current gender, including Shion himself, and it can stack up to 28%. So you're gonna need 3 fighters with the same gender as Shion, which is pretty much the case in any team. Okay, so you can get this 28% extra crit and extra block readily in any team. Okay, if only one fighter on each side, which means in tournaments or 1 versus 1 battles, when Shion enters the battle, increase 15% crit rate and block rate instead. Okay, now during round 1, after Shion makes his debut, he is immune to any debuff, pretty much like Magaki, because he's immune to any debuff in round 1. Now dispel own debuff, including petrification, for each fighter of Shion's opposite sex dies on either side. Now here it's gonna be something depending on his sex or his gender. Let's pretend now Shion is a male. If a female dies, whether in your team or in your opponent's team, he will dispel his own debuff. Okay, whereas he will recover 15% own HP for each fighter of Shion's sex dies on either side. Considering he's a male over here, if a male from your team or from your opponent's team dies, he will recover 15% own HP. So you know, it's gonna be a good thing regardless of his gender. If he's a female or a male, usually he will make use of both effects. Okay, now when fatally injured or when receiving a fatal hit, Shion escapes to an extra dimension like Ganiko for instance, which will dispel own buff and debuff and returns upon own side's next round. So like Ganiko pretty much, but instead this one is triggered when he receives a fatal hit, recovering 50% HP and seizing all buff and 300 rage from the last enemy who attacked Shion previously. So he will take the opponent's, or not take actually, he will dispel the opponent's buff and 300 rage, the one that attacked him the last. Okay, and this effect can be only triggered once, only during each battle, so he can disappear and appear again only once in the battle. And you can see here at level 1 he increases his crit power by 20%. Okay, now his second passive, remote attack and HP enhancement, increase attack and HP. At level 1 it starts with 5% as usual. His minor skill or meteor arrow, attack single enemy with lowest HP, so he targets the one with the lowest HP and reduces this target's rage by 200 and increase his own crit resistance by 40%. Now if the fighter of opposite sex is hit, he will deal extra 50% extra damage. Okay, so he does extra damage if the opponent is of opposite sex or gender. Okay, that's what the passive or the minor skill is about. Now his ultimate dual push, attack a column, dispel own debuff and increase all damage and resistance, I think, by 20%, his own damage and resistance by 20%, reduce the target's column damage resistance by 20%, here they mean only resistance I suppose, and turn 30% of the total damage to self-heal and ally with lowest HP, so he will, let's say, convert a part of this damage to heal himself and the ally with the lowest HP. Deal small skill this round, so his small skill is guaranteed for this round. If this ultimate doesn't kill an enemy, there's a 50% chance to trigger the MA Spear, his second ultimate. So if you didn't kill anybody using this ultimate, there's a 50% chance to trigger his second ultimate, okay, up to once each round of course. Now recover full rage immediately and switch to this second ultimate, which is called MA Spear, increasing attack and defense by 15% and attack a random target, but it's pretty much gonna be the one that is previously hit by the previous ultimate. Okay, dispel their buffs and deal extra damage worth 20 or 120% of the attack. So yeah, the second ultimate can deal a lot of damage to that target. And this damage actually neglects the immune effect, so resistance I think and defense. It neglects that effect, and adds cutting effect upon target, or the bleeding effect, let's say, in which the opponent will lose 10% max HP upon round starts and 50% healing rate, and this lasts for 2 rounds like a typical bleeding. Now after the weapon is awakened, which is something really critical, fully increase the effect. Now if the ultimate doesn't kill anyone, will trigger the MA Spear ultimate for sure. It's a 100% chance and not 50%. So after you awaken his weapon, he will trigger the second ultimate for sure. That's why his weapon, I would say, is one of the most important weapons in the game, let's say. Okay, so yeah, that was his ultimate is about, and pretty much that was his skill set. Now yeah, as usual, the question is Shion a good fighter or not? Yeah, he is really good, by the way. He is one of the best DPSs we have right now. And you know, regarding all his gender switching thing and everything, all his skill set, he can fit in many teams as well, and you can make good use of him in almost any team. Now front or back, of course I would say back, because he is squishy for you know, he is not tanky enough to be in the front in my opinion, so you would want to put him at the back, especially because his skill, as you have seen, reduces rage as well. So yeah, I would say put him at the back. Now regarding in which teams does he perform best, now here I would like to spot the light on Wildbird teams, because Wildbird teams as usual is all about the damage output. Okay, and well, because he makes 2 ultimates and he does a lot of damage, then definitely a Wildbird team really needs him. In addition to that, because you've seen his gender switching ability, you can actually use him in female teams. Now yeah, I did say in my previous video that there are a lot of options for female fighters, so yeah, that's why pretty much you can use him in a female team as well. You just have to be picky, or at least know where you're going at this stage. Now in 4 Souls, he would be a great tiger as well, especially if you're still using ones like Mukai, for example. He would be a great replacement as a tiger. Now if you're using Shune or Elizabeth, let's say, for example, it's up to you at this stage, depending on what do you need more in your team. And I need to say something, which is at this stage we should start to think about the Mizuchi meta, which will approach after, let's say, a few months. And the Mizuchi meta is totally different, so pretty much if you're gonna switch from 4 Souls or Genesis, let's say, to the Mizuchi meta, then it doesn't really matter if you're gonna need a tiger or not. It's gonna depend more on the nature of the fighter, whether he is a DPS or a gank or a tank in your team. So that's just something to consider as well. Just need to prepare or start thinking about it from now, I suppose. So yeah, I think that was those are the big teams that he can be good. Of course, Tiger Genesis always as well. Just as I said, you should start considering the Mizuchi meta at least for now. So yeah, you can see he can fit in many teams, and he is a good fighter as well. Now let's go to the runes section now, and as you can see now, you do have two possibilities for runes. Now in my opinion, the best combination, let's say, of runes would be Killing Soul and, well, either Wolf's Anger or Dragon Tiger. Now Killing Soul, you don't really have to put 6 Killing Soul runes for him, because he does already have a high crit rate. Plus, you know, the 6th effect or the last effect given by 6 Killing Soul runes doesn't really do that much. So I would say you can give him 4 Killing Soul just to increase his crit and do extra damage when he crits, and, well, increase his base attack using 2 Wolf's Anger or 2 Dragon Tiger instead. That would be a nice combination. Or if you don't really want to boost his crit any further, then you can use Wolf's Anger simply to just boost his attack as much as you can. Those are, I think, the best 2 options for in my opinion. I still think 4 Killing Soul and 2 either Wolf's Anger or Dragon Tiger would be the best for him. Okay, the other rune sets really don't do much for him, so yeah, I would prefer if you stick to those 2 combinations. Now one more thing which I wanted to add, which is the 5th fight soul. Some people actually asked me if you can add let's say a section or a small section of which 5th fight soul would you recommend for every fighter. Now for Shion, I would recommend either 2 5th fight souls, which are the Guardian and the War God at this stage, of course. Now why the Guardian? Because if, let's say, at 2 stars here, because if you put Guardian on Shion, he wouldn't receive damage worth of more than 40% HP, especially because he's not tanky enough. So this would be actually good for him, and it will hopefully make him survive more. So that's why I would say Guardian is a good option. Another option would be the War God, pretty much, you know, for his debuff that he can give, and, you know, increasing his crit rate, because, well, why not, right? So I think those are the, if you want to consider a fight soul or a 5th fight soul for Shion, you can consider either Guardian or War God. Okay guys, so yeah, I think that was it regarding Shion. Let me know your opinions about him, and good luck in the draw if you're going for him. And, you know, if you do have any questions, go post it in the comments below, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace out.